Hi, everyone, and welcome once again. We're talking Bradley Athletics, talking to athletes and the head coaches. And today, we're going to talk with Kate Popovec-Goss, the head coach and leader of the Bradley women's basketball program. I'm Dave Snell. Welcome again. And Coach, you're beginning year number 2 at Bradley University. And first question I want to ask you is, what do you like so much about the game of basketball?
So I was raised by a football player. My dad played Division I football, and the thing I love about basketball is it's contact, it's intense, it's up and down, but I think the thing I love about it most is it's a game of runs. So the competitive aspect of basketball is you always have a second chance to kind of redeem yourself. It's not always a one-sided game, and I just love the opportunity that it's a game of mistakes. And you have an opportunity to capitalize off those mistakes, but also create them through the madness. And I'm a defensive-minded person, so I think that all translates into how we do things.
How did you learn the game? When did you start playing?
I started playing when I was really young. So like I said, I'm one of 3 girls. We got involved in sports early, and I was always very tall. So I think my dad and my mom felt that basketball would be well-suited for me. So I played, I think, starting when I was 3 or 4. But my oldest sister is 10 years older than I am, and so my earliest memories are sitting at her basketball games when she was in high school, and I just wanted to be like her. So I just thought basketball was great, and I think for me, it allowed me to really combine my competitive spirit. I'm a very competitive person. It allowed me to kind of combine that competitiveness with my size and just with strength and power, which was something that as a young kid was awesome for me. And I played a bunch of sports, but basketball was what was always stuck.
Did you ever have a teacher or a coach that when you were growing up meant a lot to you besides maybe your folks?
Yeah, I think I just had a lot of great coaching. One of the things that I didn't realize in the moment, but that I really feel appreciative of is I grew up in a small town, but it was a small town where the basketball community was tight-knit, and I grew up in a high school program where they started training you and working with the youth as young as 5, 6 years old at camps. So you got to learn the game really young and the fundamentals of the game. And I, in retrospect, am really appreciative of that because I had a really strong foundation laid because I grew up in a small town and, it was small town coaches, small town teachers that really instilled the power of athletics, but also outside of the court, the lessons that basketball can teach you. So I was really fortunate for that.
As you progressed through your high school career, what was that like and moving up to getting ready to be recruited?
Yeah, I had a really prolific high school career. I was a 1,000-point scorer. I had over 1,000 rebounds in my career. I was pretty highly recruited. But what was great was I was surrounded by really talented athletes. So on my high school basketball team, we had a Division I softball player that played at Bowling Green. We had another Division I basketball player that went to Bowling Green. And another one of my teammates is a record-setting basketball player at University of Chicago. So it was a really competitive environment. And I also played on a nationally recognized and very competitive AAU team in All Ohio Black, which was a Nike-affiliated team at the time. So I was really fortunate to be challenged a lot through play at that level. It wasn't just me being the superstar. There was it was a great team. And that taught me a lot. And I think that also it was really important for me, and my parents always emphasized you can do other things other than just basketball. So I was the secretary of student council, I sang in the show choir, and I had a great group of girlfriends. We were all honor students together. And so that academic piece and that student piece and those other parts of my identity were really important too. And I think that that was something that throughout my collegiate career drew me to Northwestern, and really as a coach drew me to Bradley, because throughout this ever-evolving landscape of collegiate athletics with NIL, with the portal, at the end of the day, Bradley is still a place that is trying to protect the sanctity of the student-athlete experience, and that's really important to me. And I wanted to be at a place where that was an emphasis. The degree still matters. It's not 4 years, it's 40 years, because that was my experience as a student athlete, and something that I really value.
And as a coach, you are a recruiter. What was your recruitment like, and what did you learn from that experience to help you now?
Yeah, my recruitment, I actually committed to the University of Pittsburgh and played there for 2 years before transferring to Northwestern. And at the time, it was overwhelming. I'm a people person, so I can't imagine how hard it is for, kids that aren't necessarily as outgoing or, don't like the people-to-people interaction of it all the time. But I committed really early, and I didn't really pay attention enough to style of play, and I think that that's something that the second time around I looked a lot more into. But I think in recruiting, the 3 things that I talk to recruits about and that helped me to navigate making the choice to go to Northwestern was I looked at it through 3 different lenses. I looked at it as a student, I looked at it as an athlete, and I looked at it as a person. I wanted to go somewhere where I could get a great degree. I wanted to play somewhere where I felt like it was the right fit for me as an athlete, where there were people that believed in my style of play, would help me evolve, would challenge me. And as a person, I felt like I was going to be supported. Because throughout your 4 years as a collegiate athlete, you're going to go through some tough stuff. You're going to be away from home. And so all of those things happened for me at a really high level, and that really inspired my coaching journey.
When did you decide, I want to be a coach?
So probably around my sophomore year in college. I actually went into college with aspirations to do broadcasting, but in my first journalism class, they asked me to cut a 20-word sentence down to 7, and I realized that probably wasn't my strength. So I was like, this is probably not for me, and it was funny because my dad always wanted me to coach. Thought I'd be a good coach, and I was looking at coaching through such a small lens of just like, okay, you're a basketball coach, you put people in the right places and they score. And I was actually really injury plagued as an athlete, so I was on the sidelines a lot. And that's when I realized that coaching was so much more than just telling people where to go and how to play the game. It was really about the relationships, and especially as you get to a head coaching level, it's about managing. It's almost like running a business. And so I felt like those were all things that not only were strengths of mine, but that made me excited and gave me passion. And as I was being raised, I was always told, don't chase dollar signs, don't chase what people think you should do, chase what you love, and all the success will follow. So it was really the relationships that kind of brought me to coaching, and I was able to see the impact coaches can really have when I wasn't playing, which is really ironic.
Defense, defense, defense. You learned a lot at Northwestern from that and taught it too.
Yeah, I'm a defensive-minded person. I think one of the things, I'm a control the controllables person. So in basketball, you can't always control if a shot's going to go in. You can't always control how your offensive game is going to go, but defense is a mindset, and there's an intensity and a purpose to that I love. And so at Northwestern, when I was tasked with being the defensive coordinator, I really took a lot of pride in that. And my mentor, he told me that he felt like my attitude reflected in defensive intensity. I'm a pretty intense, passionate person. So I just felt like not only was I teaching X's and O's, but I was giving a piece of who I was as a player into my teaching. And I think that allowed us to be, really successful, and also being surrounded by great coaches that were supportive as well, and also really great players that was their mindset. And I think that that's what we're trying to cultivate here. It takes some time, especially with our strategy, because it is unique. It's a matchup, but in the same token, for us to be successful, we have to get stops.
Building the culture. How does that start? You began last year, and now you're starting. How do you look at that? Building the culture, indoctrinating them of how you want to play.
Yeah, it's hard. But I think what I'm really excited about as we transition from year 1 to year 2 is there's a little bit of a familiarity factor with me now. The kids that are here, they've played for me for a year, they understand what my expectations are, and I'm able to challenge them in a way now that I have their trust that last year I think was a little bit harder to do. In the same token, all the other student athletes I've recruited. And so I've recruited them to the vision of what we're building. And so the expectations that they have now have been set by our staff, they know. And there's non-negotiables with that. And they've really embraced that challenge full on, so I'm super excited. But I think that the best thing that you have to do is you have to communicate and be transparent. Young people want to know your why. And we try and make that clear every day. And when it's clear in your purpose and in your relationships and in your communication with them, it's much easier to get them to buy in between the lines. And so what I'm really excited about, just from our spring workouts into now, I think the buy-in and the commitment with what we're trying to do is at a really high level. And what that's going to allow us to do is teach, because they want to learn. And so we're really excited about where we're headed right now.
It's very important, are these folks who are watching, want to be a part of a winner, that building the program as far as what we can do to make the community aware of what you're doing and where you want to go.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really attracted me to Bradley was that it is a smaller community and it's all about basketball. Peoria and the Hilltop, there's great history here. And, you know, being in Chicago, it was such a small share of the market. You know, you're battling all the pro teams and it was wonderful, but here, people love Bradley and people are proud of Bradley and what it means to represent being a Brave. And so when I accepted this job, that was something that was important to me and something I try and make sure our athletes understand is you're not representing just a team, you're not representing just yourself, you're representing an institution and a community. And I think what we're trying to build are young athletes and young women that you can be proud of. The lessons that we build and that show up on the court are lessons that we hope they carry into the rest of their lives. And I think those are the things that attract people to winning programs, is that championship mindset. And that's what we're trying to build. And I think it's always going to take time, which is hard. None of us are patient, especially me. But what I think you're going to continue to see is a strong evolution and young women that you can be proud of, not only as athletes, but as students and as people.
Thanks, Kate.
You're welcome.
Kate Popovec-Goss.